What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this very special edition of The Awakening World. We were very fortunate to get Mark Anthony, the psychic explorer, to give us an hour of his valuable time. And so we decided to make it a special event just for all of you who have joined us, and of course, prior to our regular Saturday night show. And the topic is something I think all of us are fascinated with and possibly experiencing: interdimensional communication. I think we all know the veils are becoming thinner and thinner and thinner. The Schumann resonance is going faster and faster. And clearly, we are all part of this incredible awakening world, this incredible consciousness. And Mark Anthony is amazing. He's been at it for a long time. I'm going to tell you very briefly about him. I'll bring him up on camera. And I want to welcome all the people watching on our different broadcast partners. Thank you to the Sign Network for getting us out to so many people. So welcome to all of you watching on Facebook, YouTube, and our different broadcast partners. Mark is the psychic lawyer and the psychic attorney and the psychic adventurer. He's a world-renowned fourth-generation science-based evidential psychic medium, and he communicates with spirits. He's the author of the groundbreaking and critically acclaimed spiritual bestsellers, Never Letting Go, Evidence of Eternity, and The Afterlife Frequency, both of which were considered for Pulitzer Prizes. His credentials and experience, they're unparalleled in this paranormal world. He's an Oxford-educated trial attorney, licensed to practice in Florida, Washington, D.C., and before the United States Supreme Court. No doubt Trump will be knocking on your door soon, Mark, because God knows he needs as many lawyers as possible to go before the Supreme Court. So I'm glad we got you before Donald Trump did. Last thing I'll mention is Mark was voted Visionary of the Year by Best Holistic Life. He's an honoree of the Spiritual Awakenings Achievement Award for Best Psychic Medium, and on and on and on. Bottom line is, we're blessed to have you with us, Mark. Welcome.
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be here. I'm going to go over to screen share now.
Okay.
Can everybody see? Can everybody see the first slide?
Yep, you're good.
Right. So thank you, Scott. And I want to thank Scott and everybody with the Global Peace Tribe. And it's such an honor to be here. And I'm going to talk about the science of spirit contact and interdimensional communication. Spirit contact's part of the human experience, and since the dawn of recorded history, there have been documented accounts of communication with spirits, and they come in different ways. Spirit communication can come in the form of visitations, where you feel or you see a spirit around you, which we also refer to as after-death communication. And that can also include a visitation in the dream state. It can be through a medium, like myself. They can occur during near-death experiences and also through deathbed visions and shared death experiences. With a near-death experience, that's where a person physically dies and that person's consciousness separates from the body, but the person lives to tell about it. And he or she will return with tales of traveling through a path or a tunnel into the light, where they encounter deceased loved ones and other spiritual beings before returning to their bodies. For eons, these resurrections have been known as near-death experiences, mystified physicians and baffled religious leaders. I mean, it defied medical science for thousands of years. How could somebody that died return to life? And then they were not only resurrecting, but they talked about these transcendent realms that they went into and encountering the divine power that, dare I say, we call God. But despite thousands of years of recorded accounts of spirit communication, it's been dismissed as fantasy or feared as supernatural or paranormal. So the question is the existence of the soul in an afterlife a matter of faith or science? It's both, and the common denominator with both is light. Every belief system, from Hinduism, which originated in India over 5,000 years ago, through Moses seeing the burning bush, through Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Lao Tzu, Confucius, Native American spirituality, the religions of the Pacific, all the belief systems refer to the divine power we call God in terms of light. And as the great Islamic scholar of the Middle Ages said, Rumi, the lamps may be different, but the light is the same. Faith teaches us that the soul, also known as the spirit, and in the realm of science and psychology and psychiatry known as consciousness, that's the who and what we are, pre-exists the body, comes into the body, and lives on after the body dies. This now brings us to science. Science as we know it, I'd say modern science, physics, really began with Sir Isaac Newton. And in the 18th century, he was the scientific superstar of the Enlightenment. And of course, I emphasize the word light because the Enlightenment in the 18th century, in the 1700s, is when science as we know it really started coming together. And Newton stands apart. He's one of the world's greatest geniuses. While quarantined during the plague of 1665, he self-quarantined himself. He invented calculus, much to the misery of every high school and college student since then.
Good point.
And he explored the laws of optics and developed the laws of gravity. Yet, and in the wake of his passing, what developed has been referred to as Newtonian reductive materialism. Reductive means that physical matter is made of molecules, which are composed of atoms. Materialism stands for the proposition that the only thing that can be proven to exist is matter, and that everything is a mix of matter and energy operating according to physical laws. Reality is what is observable, objective, and reproducible, and that the supernatural does not exist. Neither do spirits, the afterlife, or God. But despite Newtonian reductive materialism, this has led to what I've termed the Newton paradox. Because when we look at Sir Isaac Newton, he did believe in God. Now, Newtonian reductive materialists, in the wake of his passing, rejected belief in God, but he absolutely believed in God. Yet, the paradox, he did not believe in the existence of a soul or of an afterlife. And the thing about Newton, he spent more time studying the Bible, seeking hidden messages, than he did studying science. Wow, this is the guy that basically invented physics as we know it, but he spent more time studying the Bible looking for cryptic messages. Newton said that atheism is so senseless. When I look at the solar system, I see the Earth at the right distance from the sun to receive the proper amounts of heat and light. This did not happen by chance. We now know that life depends on light. If it weren't for the light of the sun and the precise distance that Earth is from the sun, Earth would be nothing more than a lifeless, frozen chunk of ice drifting through space. And through photosynthesis, the light of the sun is converted by plants into food that animals eat, that we eat. So the basis of life on Earth is because of sunlight. Light is electromagnetic energy, and energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's only transferred from one form to another. This is not a theory. This is the first law of thermodynamics and physics. Now, science is split into two basic fields, the physical sciences and the biological sciences. The physical sciences, like physics, chemistry, astronomy, geology, meteorology, engineering, that's the study of inorganic, non-living material. The biological sciences, that's the study of life, microbiology, cell biology, botany, genetics, zoology, physiology. And both branches of science agree that everything is made of molecules, which in turn are made of atoms, which in turn are composed of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which in turn are composed of the smallest particle of pure electromagnetic energy, known as a quantum. Now, of course, there's hadrons in the Bose-Higgs particle, but they're not as small as a quantum. And this is where the term quantum physics comes from, because we hear quantum a lot in the metaphysical field. People, oh, quantum this, quantum that. But a quantum means that everything on the subatomic level is made of the same form of electromagnetic energy. Now, what does that mean? That means everyone listening, you, your body, your brain, the chair you're sitting in, the radio waves that's broadcasting this presentation, the light of the sun, the rings of Saturn and beyond are all at the subatomic level composed of the same form of electromagnetic energy, which is known as a quantum. And the thing is, Sir Isaac Newton did not have the benefit of quantum physics. And if he did, I believe his theories would have evolved to an even greater level. And quantum physics stands for and proves that matter and energy, which includes light, are composed of quanta, which are particles of pure electromagnetic energy. Nikola Tesla, one of the great geniuses of the early 20th century, said that what one man calls God, another calls the laws of physics. Now, a lot of people say it's really difficult wrapping my head around the notion that everything is made of the same form of electromagnetic energy, including me versus, this pen that I'm holding up right now, and radio waves and X-rays and gamma rays and the rays of the sun. And that's really hard to wrap my head around. Well, my response to that is, you think? It did take Albert Einstein to figure this out. And not only Albert Einstein, but his wife, Mileva Einstein, along with Max Planck, Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, Louis de Broglie. The late 19th and early 20th centuries just had a renaissance of geniuses. And Albert Einstein, in conjunction with his wife, Mileva, developed the general theory of relativity. We've all heard of E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. This describes the relationship between energy, mass, and the speed of light. What this means is that mass and energy are related and can be changed from one to the other. Albert Einstein said, matter is energy, energy is light. We are all light beings. Well, that's a nice slogan and that's a nice thought, but now we have proof that he was 100% on target. This brings us to the discovery of biophotons. Biophotons are ultra-weak photon emissions produced by cells. In other words, your cells produce flashes of light. This is not bioluminescence. This is not like a firefly or certain fish like lampreys that generate light through what's known as bioluminescence. Biophotons are invisible to the human eye. And according to Sergei Nabarov of the Lebedev Institute of Physics in Moscow, biophoton streams consist of short quasi-periodic bursts similar to those used to send binary data. So what does this mean? Well, there is evidence that biophoton emission correlates with neural activity, suggesting that biophotons could act as neurocommunication signals. All right, here you see a foot about to step on a tack, and we've all been in that situation, and immediately you know it hurts. Well, scientists for years have been wondering, how does the signal of pain get from your foot to your brain instantaneously? It's because it's moving at the speed of light. So what this means is that your cells, these flashes of light, are communicating with each other. This brings us to the next level, that biophoton emission is a general phenomenon of all living systems. Scientists have discovered biophotons not just in animals, but also in plants. In fact, trees communicate with each other. Their roots will touch each other underground, and the mycelium fungus that forms on the tips of tree roots acts as a mediator, and biophotons are flashing between roots of similar and also dissimilar species of trees. So biophotons originate from a coherent photon field within the living organism, its function being intra and intercellular regulation and communication. So Einstein was right. We are light beings. From the cosmic to the subatomic, the common denominator between science and spirituality is light. Light is how humans perceive the spiritual energy of the divine power we call God. Enlightenment is, and enlightenment has many meanings, but in the spiritual context, enlightenment means our awareness of the connection to the eternal light, to the divine power. I developed the term enlightenment in my book, Evidence of Eternity, because enlightenment is the awareness of the light within us. Think about how many times we hear somebody say namaste. Namaste is a Hindi word which means I see the light of God within you. So the Hindus understood this thousands of years ago, that this very same light that our biophotons in our cells create is the same light as the light of the sun, and the same form of light that people experience in near-death experiences and in deep spiritual encounters with the divine. Neuroscience is the study of the human brain. The brain is a carbon-12 and salt resonator floating in water. It has an electromagnetic field, and even though the brain is only 2% of the body's weight, it uses over 20% of its energy. The official position of neuroscience is that the brain creates consciousness through chemical reactions and electrical impulses. However, neuroscientists can't explain how or why this happens. That's because the brain is an organ and it's not creating the soul. Professor Hans-Peter Dürr of the Max Planck Institute in Germany. Now, can you think of anyone more serious than a German physicist from the Max Planck Institute in Germany? And what Professor Dürr has said is that the brain is like a computer hard drive. When the hard drive dies, we do not lose this information, this consciousness. The body dies, but the spiritual quantum field continues. In this way, we're immortal. Now, popping across the English Channel to Sir Roger Penrose from my alma mater, Oxford, and I'm very proud of Sir Roger Penrose. He recently won the Nobel Prize in Physics. He said that consciousness derives from quantum vibrations within the brain's neurons. In the spiritual sense, consciousness has been here all along. Well, thank you for indulging me, but with my my accents. But the thing is, we have the world's top physicists now chiming in on there is a soul, there is an afterlife. It pre-existed the body, it came into the body, and it moves on after the body dies. And not only does it move on after the body dies, but it remains a coherent quantum field. So we are not these bodies. We're energy, which is referred to as consciousness in the realms of psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy. It's referred to as a soul or a spirit by people of faith. It is what makes us unique. It includes our personality, observations, memories, knowledge, and love. Consciousness is pure energy. It pre-exists the body, comes into the body, and then lives on after physical death, meaning it is eternal. So, what are we? Well, think of your body like a car. Some people have really hot cars. And you look at that car and say, man, that is one fine car. I'd really like to hop on that thing. And then others of us, well, maybe not so much. But the truth is, physics teaches us that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. Faith teaches us that the soul, the spirit, consciousness, pre-exists the body, comes into the body, and lives on after physical death. After a lifetime of being a psychic medium, communicating with spirits, and as a researcher through both experiential discoveries and thousands of hours of research, I developed the term the electromagnetic soul, the EMS. And it's a 21st century term to describe that our soul, our spirit, is pure consciousness, which is eternal electromagnetic energy. And I'm extremely humbled and very honored that many scientists in the realm of the afterlife studies and survival of consciousness have adopted this term. They're referring to the electromagnetic soul as the EMS. Now, some people have said, well, the electromagnetic soul, that sounds so clinical, it takes the humanity out of it. But one of my colleagues and a very dear friend said, perhaps we should think of the soul as the source of universal love. And that friend, whom I hold in the highest esteem, is Dr. Gary Schwartz from the University of Arizona. He's one of the leading experts in the world on survival of consciousness and afterlife studies. Our EMS, electromagnetic soul, may be analogized to a drop of water. And when we die, that drop of water plunges into this eternal sea of souls, which I refer to as the collective consciousness. Now, the human eye can only detect light wave frequencies between 430 and 770 terahertz. Human ears can only detect sound wave frequencies between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. So what this means is that the eye, the human eye, sees less than 0.002% of the electromagnetic spectrum, and the human ear barely can hear what's available, like 2%, barely hears 2% of the sound spectrum. So there's an infinite spectrum of energetic frequency beyond the perception of our physical senses. You ever thought you saw a spirit in a mirror? Maybe you're in the bathroom or you're somewhere and you glance in the mirror and you see a familiar face behind you and you turn around and it's not there. Ever feel that you've seen a spirit in your peripheral vision and then you turn and that spirit seems to have vanished? Have you ever tried to look at a comet directly? It's very hard to see a comet directly. It's better if you look at the comet through your peripheral vision. Well, all of these have something in common, and the common denominator is the structure of the human eye. And within the retina, within the eyes, you have cones, which are at the center of the retina, and they detect color and details, and rods, which are on the periphery of the retina, are light sensitive. So here you see a diagram of the eye, and when you look off to the left side, the cones, that's daytime vision, color, detail, and that's the best for daytime. But the rods in the lower quadrant of the left side of the screen, those detect light and dark and very sensitive and subtle light patterns. Astronomers have developed the term averted vision. And averted vision means when you're trying to look at a comet, you're using daytime vision, which is your cones, the cones in your retina, and you won't be able to see it. But if you shift your line of sight off to the side so that then you can observe the comet in your peripheral vision, then the rods kick in and you'll be able to observe it. And guess what? It's the same thing with spirits. And I teach this to a lot of paranormal investigators because I'm involved in a lot of paranormal investigations. And so they'll say, oh, there's a spirit and it vanished. It's like, no, the spirit didn't vanish. Let's shift our focus and observe where we think we saw the spirit in your peripheral vision. This is also a technique that I teach to members of Helping Parents Heal, because a lot of parents who've lost children will feel that for a second they see their child in their peripheral vision, then they turn and their child vanishes. The fact of the matter is, your loved one didn't vanish. It's merely you're shifting from rods to cones in your eye, so it gives the illusion that the spirit is no longer there. And the more you work with this, you're going to be able to perceive that spirit quite a bit longer. The electromagnetic spectrum, we'll think of it as a yardstick, or for our friends overseas, a meter stick. And if you see in the middle, there's the visible light spectrum. So figure a yardstick. What we can see with our naked eye of the electromagnetic spectrum is about half an inch, maybe a centimeter on a meter stick. So what we are capable of seeing through through our human naked eyes is a minute fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. Why? It's because the way our eyes are designed, and it has to do with our cones and our rods. However, a hummingbird can see ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light, the frequency is extremely high, very rapid frequency. Now, why can a hummingbird see ultraviolet light? Well, they have an additional cone in their eye designed to do that. But among human beings, there are people known as tetrachromats. And tetrachromats are only women, and they have a quote-unquote abnormal fourth gene. I don't like calling this an abnormal gene. I think it's a supernormal, a supernatural, it's a superpower. And what tetrachromats possess is a fourth cone. See, the cones in our eyes are for red and blue light and yellow, but the fourth cone is sensitive to the yellow-green part of the spectrum. And it's because of the two X chromosomes that only women inherit this gene. And the thing is, the normal eye sees 1 million colors, but tetrachromats can see 100 million colors. All right. The thing about tetrachromats is, ladies, you may be a tetrachromat and not even know it, because unless you are specifically tested for this, why would you know it? You're just seeing what you see, and that's your normal. Guys, the next time you're with your lady and you're shopping and she says, does this color look good on me? The answer is always yes, because she already knows it does. And the thing is, if you notice, overall, women seem to be better with colors than men. I'm not trying to generalize, but this could involve the fact that many women are tetrachromats and they don't know it, so their range of what they're able to see in the color spectrum by far exceeds anything a man can see. So everything in creation has a vibration. All things in our universe are constantly in motion, vibrating. Even objects that appear to be stationary are in fact vibrating, oscillating, and resonating at various frequencies. Everything in nature vibrates, and frequency is the rate at which vibrations occur. So think of a basketball. If you're dribbling it slow, the frequency is slow. If you dribble it very quickly and get closer to the ground, then the frequency increases. The brain has 5 main frequencies: gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Gamma, that's when you're on Final Jeopardy or you're doing one of Sir Isaac Newton's calculus tests. You are cranking. Your brain is running at full throttle. Beta, that's the activities of daily living, the state that we're all in now. Alpha, I call that the groovy baby state. So all of our listeners from Southern California know what I'm talking about. Basically, alpha is when you start to relax. It's a meditative state. You're beginning to drift off. And then theta is dreamful sleep. That's the sleep state. Delta is very little brainwave activity, but delta is important. That's when your body heals and there's cellular regeneration. But let's go back to the alpha-theta border. Each of these can be measured through electroencephalogram and quantitative electroencephalogram. And each of these have a particular frequency measured in hertz. When you get to 8 hertz, which is the alpha-theta border, this is where psychic and mediumistic activity occurs. This is why so many people, when you're in the dream state, you will have an encounter with a deceased loved one. And it's different than a regular dream. It's a visitation. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It feels real. When you come out of it, it's like, wow, that was my mom or that was my son. I talked to them. Why is that? It's because that's exactly what you're doing. And for some reason that we still don't understand, people like me, mediums, can voluntarily go from beta to alpha theta at will. So that's why a lot of mediums, when you ask them, what does it feel like? Well, it feels like I'm kind of in a daydream. Well, of course it feels that way because you're at the alpha theta border, and that is when spirits can see that. So when I'm working as a medium, spirits can see, okay, he's at alpha theta. They adjust their frequency to align with it. Similarly, this is what happens when you're sleeping, and that's why the spirits of loved ones will come to you in the dream state, because they can spot that you're right around that 8 hertz frequency. So why not just use technology like an electroencephalogram or quantitative electroencephalogram to identify the electromagnetic soul? Well, EEG and QEEG are extremely useful for medical research and diagnosis. However, they're neither sensitive enough nor designed to identify the electromagnetic soul, much less to tune into the afterlife frequency. In other words, that's not what they're designed for. And Professor Shelley Renee Joy of the California Institute of Integral Studies has said that it is entirely feasible that there are specific ranges of harmonic frequencies that interact with mind-brain systems through resonance at far higher frequencies than currently supposed. In other words, we don't have the technology yet to tune into the afterlife frequency or the electromagnetic soul. And notice that I say not yet. However, the year 2022 was a banner year in afterlife research. In Tartu, Estonia, and I can always remember this because it happened on 2/22/22, an 87-year-old man started having epileptic seizures, and part of the protocol for someone having an epileptic seizure when he was rushed to the hospital is to administer an EEG, an electroencephalogram, to measure his brainwave frequencies. Well, then he suffered a massive heart attack and he died while he was being administered the EEG. And this is the first time in history that a dying human brain was recorded by an EEG. And just before and after his heart stopped, the doctors saw changes in a specific band of neural oscillations, all 5 brainwave frequencies, gamma, delta, theta, alpha, and beta, went off the charts. And doctors said the brain may be playing a last recall of important life events just before we die, similar to the ones reported in near-death experiences. Well, this led to the lucid dying study, which came out in November 2022. Almost 600 people at 25 different hospitals in the US and UK, when they went into cardiac arrest and CPR was being administered, they were given they were hooked up to EEGs, and 1 in 5 survivors reported lucid experiences of death, which were not hallucinations, illusions, or delusions. And the lead researcher, Dr. Sam Parnia, said, identifying measurable electrical signs of lucid and heightened brain activity together with similar stories of recall death experiences suggests the human sense of self and consciousness may not stop completely around time of death. This is huge, folks. This is scientific evidence that the who, the what we are, our brains, not our brain, but our soul survives physical death. So now we have evidence, and this is just the beginning. So think of the afterlife frequency on a much higher vibration, our material world dimension on a lower frequency, and sometimes the 2 frequencies overlap. And in between them, I call that the NDE zone, the near-death experience zone. And this is where interdimensional communication occurs. Mediumship, visitations, near-death, shared death, deathbed visions, out-of-body experiences occur during a frequency alignment of the electromagnetic soul with the afterlife frequency. So how does interdimensional communication happen? Well, this involves quantum entanglement. Now, Edgar Mitchell, he's one of the guys that walked on the moon. He's also a UFOologist and the founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He said that when subatomic matter is in a process together, subsequently, the subatomic particles go apart from each other and across the universe. When they do this, they will remain entangled. That means if you do something to one, the other responds immediately, instantaneously. Physicists believe that even if these subatomic particles are 1 billion miles apart, they are still entangled. And if you do something to one, the other particle 1 billion miles away will react. Well, frequency beacons frequency beacon is a term that I developed, and this is the 2-way street of interdimensional communication. For all you parents out there, have you ever been doing something and all of a sudden you started feeling something was wrong with one of your children, something bad happened? Think of a frequency beacon as a 3-dimensional spider web, and everyone that you love, both here on planet Earth and in spirit, are attached to that. Now, how do spider webs work? Well, they work on vibration. Something hits the spider web and it sends a vibration. This is more pronounced with spirits because they're not encumbered with or limited by a physical body. So let's say that you're grieving someone very heavily. You send that vibration along the frequency beacon. It draws the spirit to you. Well, they can send frequency beacons to you too. Ever been somewhere and all of a sudden you see a number combination and you always think of a particular person? All of a sudden, have you ever turned on the radio and there's that song? Maybe you find particular objects like a coin, or maybe you see feathers or maybe dragonflies or butterflies, and every time you do, you think of that person. Do you think that this is a coincidence? No, this is a frequency beacon. This is how spirits communicate with us. And there's physiology to this. For all of our friends that are watching that do yoga, we all know about chakras. We've all heard we've got 7 different chakras, and each chakra aligns with an endocrine gland in your body. Isn't that amazing? 5,000 years ago, Hindu yogis in India developed chakras whose location coincides with the 7 endocrine glands in our body. There's 2 endocrine glands, 2 chakras in particular, which are related to spirit contact. One is the solar plexus, which is in the pit of the stomach. The other is the pineal gland, the proverbial third eye chakra behind the center of your forehead. Let's take a look at these. Now, the pineal gland, it's about between the size of a grain of rice and a small lima bean. It's about 4.5, maybe 5 inches behind the center of your forehead. Within the pineal gland, and it's the smallest organ in the body, the most mysterious, the most misunderstood, and one of the most studied, it contains calcite and magnetite crystal fragments. It controls and regulates your brainwave frequencies. Remember the 5 frequencies we were just talking about? It secretes hormones, in particular melatonin, that affect the reticular activating system. It controls your circadian rhythms, your body temperature, sleep cycles, activity levels, digestion, and the pineal gland regulates your ability to perceive light. Wow, this is getting heavier by the second. Now, what was the first radio? First radio was a piece of quartz crystal with copper wire running through it. Pineal gland has calcite and magnetite crystals, both of which have piezoelectric properties, meaning when subjected to stress, they generate an electromagnetic field. Okay, we know the brain's got an electrical field, so we have an extremely sophisticated receiver and broadcasting technology in our head. Now, the solar plexus, that is just below the rib cage, and right just above your stomach. It's called solar plexus because it refers to the resemblance between the radial network of nerves and the ganglia and the rays of the sun. In other words, all the ganglia emanate from it like the rays of the sun. There's a link between gut feelings and intuitive knowledge, and that's Dr. Mayer from UCLA. And the thing about the solar plexus, it is the second most complex bundle of nerves in the human body outside of the cerebral cortex. And it has been referred to as the second brain. Now, people say, what do you mean a second brain? Isn't the one in our head, isn't that the only brain? Well, other species have more than one brain. An octopus has 9 brains, one in its head, and each one of its arms has a brain. So if other species can have multiple brains, why can't the human body? And so the solar plexus is being studied in great detail, and this is where you receive the emotional data, feelings. You hear about, oh, I feel it in my gut, and the feelings in the pit of your stomach. Well, there's a reason why you feel that, because solar plexus is where you're receiving that information. Interdimensional communication occurs when a spirit, an electromagnetic soul, transmits an EM pulse which is received by the medium's brain. This wave of frequency is then translated by the brain into recognizable information based on the medium's memories, feelings, and cultural associations. Think of spirit communication like a triangle. The afterlife frequency, the spirits are at the top, the medium's on one side, the client's on the other. And so the spirits are transmitting information to the medium conveys it to the client, who can validate. Problems occur when the client gets mired down in no syndrome. They start shooting everything down. by immediately going to know, or overthinking and hyperanalyzing. Why would he bring that up? I don't understand why that happened after he died. I don't understand the relevance. Or, well, I want this, and I haven't heard this, and until I hear this. And the thing is, I'm not faulting people for doing this. It's very natural and normal. You can get overwhelmed during a reading. You just say no to everything because it takes time to figure things out. Overthinking, hyperanalyzing, that's a virtue in our day jobs, but not in spirit communication. It's a love-based, an emotional activity. You have to feel first, think later. And I want. I mean, I've done readings for people and I've given them 100 pieces of verifiable facts, but until they heard that one thing, they weren't going to believe things. And so what they were doing is torpedoing the experience instead of going with it. And so this is one of the things that I teach in my books, Evidence of Eternity, and even more so, the Afterlife Frequency, is how to avoid the no syndrome. So what about people who aren't mediums? The truth is, everyone is capable of experiencing interdimensional communication. Not everyone's a psychic or a medium, but everyone's capable of having the experience. And in the Afterlife Frequency, I teach the RAFT technique, how to recognize signs from spirits, accept the contact is real, feel it without overthinking, and trusting the message. And that is the RAFT technique. And I've had a lot of people respond to me and say how much the RAFT technique has opened up a whole new way of them communicating with their loved ones and spirits. And I'm also very honored that a number of people who teach psychic development are using the Afterlife Frequency as the text for their courses. Now, a deathbed vision is where somebody is about to transition and they'll start talking about seeing or hearing deceased loved ones, religious beings, and or beautiful scenery. And my friend and colleague, Dr. Jeffrey Long of the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, has documented many cases of deathbed visions. For those of you who've been with somebody who is transitioning, you too may have experienced this, where people start talking about seeing loved ones in spirit. Betty White, the last of the Golden Girls. The love of her life was Alan Ludden, and she was married to him from 1963 to 1981. They were inseparable, and she loved him so much that after he died, she couldn't be with anyone else. And Betty lived another 40 years after Alan passed. And this is a photo of her at age 99. She passed 2 weeks before her 100th birthday. And just as she took her last breath, and this was attested to by her caregiver and by her dear friend, actress Vicki Lawrence, Betty looked up, smiled, and said, "Alan," and then she died. Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple, on his deathbed, looked up and his family said he was trying to describe something that he was actually seeing. He just kept saying, "Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow," and then he passed. Now, one of the most controversial and perhaps most documented deathbed visions on record was George Floyd. Now, I'm not here to play politics or anything like that, but when that police officer had him pinned down and he was dying, he said, "Mama, I'm through." The thing is, George Floyd's mother had passed years before he died. And what we do know, he was very, very close to her. And when I was watching that clip, and it's very hard to watch as a near-death experience and afterlife researcher, I said, "Oh my God, he was seeing his mother. That was who was coming to greet him as he was dying." So this George Floyd may very well be the most filmed deathbed vision in history. Now, a shared death experience is at the time somebody's passing, people around them, not just relatives, but close friends, nurses, doctors, other medical personnel can see a spirit leaving the person's body. They may see a transparent replica leaving the body. They'll describe a feeling of their own bodies rising to accompany the loved one. They'll hear beautiful music. They see an apparition of the deceased loved ones and a bright light filling the room at the time of death. And Dr. Raymond Moody, who developed the term near-death experience, has been documenting this for decades. There's an overlap between shared death experiences and deathbed visions. And here's how I describe it. So there's the afterlife frequency, and there is a person's electromagnetic soul. That's a person in transition. All right, so there's people nearby, and that's their brainwave frequencies. Their electromagnetic souls are interphasing with that of the dying person. So people who are not in imminent danger or of dying are now brainwave frequency-wise interfacing with the person who's dying, and they're picking up on what that person is experiencing. And that's how mediumship works. And that's why people who aren't mediums, who will be around somebody who's dying, say, wait, we thought we saw Aunt Martha and Uncle John just as mom passed. And then the person transitions. And then the shared death experience ceases. Can we develop technology to communicate with spirits? Thomas Edison, one of the last things he was working on was the so-called spirit phone in the 1920s. Well, since then, Dr. Gary Schwartz and his colleague, Dr. Mark Pickstick, are working on the soul phone. And I'm honored to be one of the research mediums working with Dr. Schwartz in conjunction with the soul phone. I've been in his lab. I've seen it. It's really cool, but I can't tell you because I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But let me tell you something. The next couple of years, we're going to see an invention which is going to rock this world.
Hey, Mark, I'm going to jump in for a quick second. This is an amazing presentation.
I've only got a few, two or 3 minutes left.
Okay, yeah, because we got to wrap up so I have enough time.
I will. I got to do this. Okay. The best friend I ever had. We grew up together. Billy, we met when we were 11. We went to junior high, high school, college together. And after college, he went to Asia and was teaching English to Japanese executives. I went to law school. Well, he invited me to Asia. We spent over a month hiking through Japan, then Southeast Asia. And here we are at Kinkakuji, the Golden Temple. Thing about Billy, he was an atheist. Even though we were both raised Catholic, he was Irish Catholic, I'm Italian Catholic. We had this ongoing debate our entire lives. Of course, I argued for the other side, that there is a life beyond this one. And he used to tell me there's no science, there's no technology to prove this. And we never got into like a heated argument, but we got into an intellectual discussion. Well, I even performed his wedding ceremony. He met a beautiful woman from Japan, and I'll never forget that day as long as I live. There I was, standing on a podium, my best friend, my new best friend, his wife, all of our parents were there, all of our friends from high school, college, half of my fraternity was there. It was one of those shining moments in life where everyone I loved was not only alive, but they were there. A few years after that, he died by suicide. And obviously, I was devastated. Not long after that, my first book, Never Letting Go, had come out, and I was a speaker at a paranormal conference at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. And I had just finished speaking, and I was signing copies of my book, Never Letting Go. Meanwhile, my manager, Rocky, and she's in the Zoom room tonight, she was walking around looking at some of the other exhibits, and she was very interested in the paranormal investigation equipment, all of which scans various frequencies within the electromagnetic spectrum. And she was walking by the Spirit Box scanner, and all of a sudden she heard, "Get Mark." And the guy exhibiting it says, "Did that just talk to you?" And it said, "Get Mark" again. And all of a sudden I hear Rocky and this guy, get over here, get over here. And I get up and I run over to them, and Rocky has tears in her eyes. And as I approach it, I hear, "Dude." And I stop right in my tracks. And then I heard, love you, bro. It was Billy's voice coming out of that thing. And reason Rocky was crying is because she knew him too. And Billy and I grew up in the surfing culture of East Coast Central Florida, and he always called me dude. And the very last thing he ever said to me in this world was, love you, bro. I remember he hugged me and he went back to California. I went back to Florida. And then I thought, wait a second, this is amazing, but he's trying to tell me something much bigger than just love you, bro, which was amazing enough. The atheist my entire life who told me there's no science, there's no technology to prove that life exists beyond the physical. What did he choose? A piece of technology to communicate with me. And Gary Galka invented the Spirit Box scanner. He's an electrical engineer. And when his daughter Melissa was killed in a tragic accident, he developed the Spirit Box scanner. And just recently, I got the honor of meeting Gary when we both appeared in an episode of a new Discovery Channel show, Destinations of the Damned, and we actually got to work together. So a week from today, next Friday, I will be conducting an online light circle. Please go to my website, afterlifefrequency.com. There's only a couple tickets left. It's limited to 6 people, so everyone can receive a reading. And then every Thursday, I'm on The Psychic and the Doc. I co-host it with Dr. Pat Basili. I will do readings for callers in conjunction with Dr. Pat. Using her amazing ability. She's a world-class, world-renowned behavioral psychologist to help people understand the meanings and hear my books. And I also write for Best Holistic Life magazine. So, Scott, I want to thank you for having me as a speaker. I want to thank the Global Peace Tribe, everyone is associated with Global Peace Tribe, and I want to especially thank everyone for tuning in and everybody who's listening to this. Thank you. It has been an honor to present for you. Many blessings.
Thank you, Mark. Absolutely. And I wanted to come in and acknowledge you. People have loved this. We're going to see Mark again. He's going to be at the New Living Expo. And 4 weeks from tonight, we're going to be doing our show from the Expo. So hopefully Mark can come in, sit next to me, and take some of your questions. And that'll be on Saturday night, May the 10th. Mark, I'm going to actually, you can stick around for a few minutes. I need to go open up the other Zoom room for our regular Global Peace Triber. And I'm going to make Omashar our host. And if people want to stay and ask a question or two, they can. Meanwhile, I'm going to go get the other show started. And of course, I know that most of you I will see when in the Global Peace Tribe regular show. And I am giving you the power, Omashar. Mark, thank you so much.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you, Scott.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much. That was profound, unbelievable, and so necessary. The things that I'm going through in my life at the moment, it just clarifies and it even gives a balm for the heart and a balm for the soul. And so I think we're going to say goodbye now. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience who would like to ask any questions. We have just a couple of minutes here, but the other show is starting. So, and most of you need to change Zoom rooms. But if there is, please put up your virtual hand and we shall go to you. Roger, was that you asking for a question or?
Yes, I'd like to know the name of that machine. I would like to get one. That little
the Spirit Box scanner.
Spirit Box scanner.
Yeah, if you do an internet search, Spirit Box, do the Spirit Box by Gary Galka, Galka.
Yep.
And he is such a nice man. I wish I had more time because we were on a break and he was getting the Spirit Box, and all of a sudden I heard my parents' voices come out of it. And then all of a sudden, I got a message from his daughter and brought through something that nobody ever knew except he and his daughter. And it was and that's what they should have been filming. I mean, that's what Discovery Channel should have been filming instead of the Ghosts and Goblins thing,
Yeah.
and which was a great show.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we were both doing what we're really good at. And he came out of that going, I can't believe you got that message from my daughter. And I'm like, I can't believe I heard my parents, you know? So it was really, really fascinating.
It's
Wow.
amazing.
Awesome. Thank you.
The name again?
Spirit Box.
The Spirit Box, yeah.
His name. Gary Galka?
Gary Galka, Galka.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Gary
See you on the
Mark.
other Zoom show.
Thank you. I think we're going to close this one out, and everyone's going to jump ship. And maybe Scott will invite you to come on the regular show. I don't know if you're open to that, but it's pretty amazing, and it's so in context to what is shared every week on the Awakening World. So thank you so much.
Very good. I look forward to returning. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you so
All right.
much. It was
Ciao.
Thank
amazing.
you so
And
much.
there will be a
Thank you, Mark.
recording. So bye. Okay, guys. See you on the other side. The regular Saturday